We have finally got Legendary Male Corrin, but unfortunately his Omega Yado has gone missing. So he's a green infantry dragon, and this is going to be my review of him. He's a fire legendary hero, even though he sets up the water terrain. And I'll also be going over my tier list of the fire legendary heroes and the builds for all of them. So he has got Hoshido's Breath, which is giving him -1 special cooldown. So his Dragon Fang shot is a 1 cooldown special, which he can loop with the Time Pulse 4 built in his weapon. He also gets the distant counter effect in his weapon, so he doesn't really have to run that in his Sacred Seal. Nowadays, we do see many dragon units and Omni tanks simply have this encounter in their preferred weapon, so this just allows them to stack up even more stats. And Time Pulse 4 is really important for pre-charging and looping Dragon Fang shots so that he can set up the water terrain, and then in the combat he can get up to 14 to all of his stats, and this is going to be depending on the number of allies in 3 spaces multiplied by 3 and then added by 5. He also gets 7 flat damage reduction on foes' first attacks, including the brave hits. So this is the unpierceable damage reduction, which is really valuable, and it does help him as an Omni tank compared to something like Legendary Female Leer, who has got completely pierceable damage reduction in her weapon. So this kind of flat damage reduction is certainly going to be helpful. And finally, he does have the scowl effect in this weapon, so it is going to be helping him tank the pre-charged specials, and he can actually run double scowl as you're going to be stacking up the resistance anyways. His special is Dragon Fang shot, and this is not going to be inhittable, and this is going to be looping with his Time Pulse 4, and it does give you damage based on 40% of his resistance whenever this special triggers. So it's an offensive special, but it does have some defensive things like having unpierceable Dragon Wall. So the calculation of this Dragon Wall depends on the current special cooldown count value. So if it's pre-charged, then it's a 0, so it's basically going to be 4 multiplied by 10, and that's why he can get 40 damage reduction. And this is unpierceable because they have not really stated that it's going to be pierceable. Nabata Altina's special is also worded similarly, so this is going to be unpierceable damage reduction, which again helps him. And if his special is ready, or if it triggers in the combat, he can basically pierce the damage reduction of the enemies by 50%, and after he triggered his special after the combat, he's going to be applying the Divine Rain water terrain on the target space and the spaces within 2 spaces of them. So the water terrain is basically going to be a terrain hindrance for the ranged foes, kind of similar to the flame terrain of Flared Sparrow, so even flying units are going to be having trouble traversing this as long as they're ranged units, and this can be bypassed with the unhindered movement status that we have seen with Kadean Lin, Nabate Gren, Arlen, and units like them. So this is definitely good for tanking, as you can stop the amount of units that are going to be attacking you in a turn in something like Aether Raid's offense, and you also inflict -5 speed debuff on the foe in the combat, and then you also get 50% damage reduction piercing on the foe, and you can basically have 75% damage reduction piercing, which is definitely good on Corrin. So he pretty much takes away most of your damage reduction, which is good against many of the modern nukes. And then he has got speed resistance finish 4, which kind of makes me think that he's going to be a bit speedy. At first I thought he might be slow, but probably not because of this. And he also has tier 4 version of Dragon Wall. So high Dragon Wall is going to be having the Phantom resistance +5 built in. It also inflicts -4 speed and resistance debuff on the foe, and it has the regular, Dragon Wall built in, which is going to be also active against the AoE special, so it's going to be max 40%, and it also has a mini warp bubble effect against the ranged foes. So the ranged foes cannot warp into spaces within 4 spaces of this unit, and this is definitely an amazing thing for many of the dragon units that want to function as an Omni tank in Aether Raid's offense and in Summoner duels, and Corrin is definitely going to be making an amazing use out of it. The fact that it gives you Phantom resistance makes it so that a lot of these dragons, including Corrin, can run the ploy skill and have a better resistance check. So we have got some interesting warp blocking, but you'll have to choose between this or Lagoose Friend on many of the dragons that can, run Lagoose Friend and get that flat damage reduction, because they might not have the luxury of Legendary Male Corrin and getting the flat damage reduction out of his weapon and special. And then he has got attack resistance ploy 3, so he is going to be having decently high visible resistance, I hope. Calculating his resistance, he's going to be having a stat spread similar to this, because he is likely going to be having trainee BST, as most of the Corrins with Dragonstone do. So he's going to be having 42 base resistance, I hope, at the bare minimum, because he's able to ploy Asker in the trailer. So he's going to be having at least like 37 base resistance, and his speed is also not the highest, because this kind of stat spread does spread itself a bit thin, but still he gets Omni 14 with his weapon and even more with the finish kill. So he can work out as a pretty good Omni tank with a lot of unpierceable damage reduction. Not to the degree of Emblem Ike, I would say, but still he's one of the better Omni tanks, but there are definitely quite a lot of Omni tanks that can give him competition. Emblem Ike is gonna be on this banner, and there's also Legendary Male Lear, who has got that miracle effect, which is so good. But the thing is that Legendary Male Corrin has got that AoE damage reduction, which something like Emblem Ike doesn't. So this does help him against Nabata Grin and a lot of the AoE nukes. And if he can stack up, the AoE damage reduction with something like Goto, then he can be really tanky. But unfortunately, he has to enter the combat to set up the water terrain, which can be a bit annoying, and he's a melee unit. It's not exactly the highest mobility unit to go in and just set up this terrain, but because of his bulk and the unpierceable damage reduction, he's going to be able to survive and then, set up the terrain. But you really want the water terrain on the first combat so that he can get that speed debuff on the enemy and get better damage reduction piercing. So unfortunately, he's not going to be having that most of the time, and a lot of the times, the strongest enemy is going to be attacking you first. And outside of the water terrain, he doesn't really provide any kind of other support to your allies, which is definitely a big thing for a legendary unit to stay relevant for a long period of time. So he's a pretty solid Omni tank, not really anything too insane, but definitely fits right into the mold of the Omni tanks that we have got nowadays. He has got all of the things that check the boxes like unpierceable damage reduction, scowl, distant counter, and also, setting up the water terrain, which is unique to him. His fodder is also going to be useful, as you can likely get the ploy skill and the high dragon wall skill at the same time. You can also get the finish skill at the same time, but not a lot of units would want it. It is available from Yulia in the Forcer pool, but again, most units would want to run attack speed finish instead. And you can even run speed resistant scowl on him if you want to get the double scowl going. Null Counter Disrupt is definitely going to be his next slot B option, which you can run, because a lot of the fire sweep and water sweep effects are going to be really annoying for him as an Omni tank. So I kind of wish that he had got Null Counter Disrupt built in his weapon, which would have helped him quite a lot. But unfortunately, if you want him to function well in Ether Raids, then you want to have this skill, because Dual Leon does have the resistance sweep, and he can try and stack up enough resistance to not get swept by him, but against a lot of the other effects, which are like flash and they're just fire sweep in nature, you're going to be needing Null Counter Disrupt. And for his slot C, he does have a couple of options. Ploy is definitely pretty good. You can even run a speed variant of this in attack speed Ploy. Panic Smoke 4 is also helpful for Omni tanking, and if you're going to be running him in Arena, then he can provide more support with Infantry Nullfollow 4, and Counter Control is also something he can run in Summoner duels to provide you with more utility. For Sacred Seal, Squad A's BW is going to be amazing for the visible resistance and the speed, so you need the resistance for deploying, and that's why this is a really good Sacred Seal. Speed resistance form can also work out, and if you're completely buffing him up and running him as an Omni tank, then Bonus Doubler could also be a Sacred Seal. You could run Distant Counter Dragon to get the max arena scoring, but he doesn't really need it because it is built in his weapon. Before we begin with the Fire Legendary tier list, let's take a look at a game just as hot. Enter Food Devils, an ambitious indie SRPG game that mixes the tactical grid-based combat system of Fire Emblem with the thrilling unpredictability of roguelike games. In this ravaged world, you stand as the last remaining chef, wielding your culinary skills as weapons, and with no other choice of survival, you will have to forge contracts with Food Devils, which each have their own whims and fancies, but they're going to be aiding your adventures and your restaurant. With a diverse array of Food Devils at your disposal, there's probably going to be one that fits your tastes. The game features a story with branch paths and a whole lot of top-tier voice acting. We are really thankful for all of the Kickstarter support, and now Food Devils will not only be available for consoles like Nintendo Switch and its successor, but also will get localized in 5 different languages. So please check out the links in the description, and thank you to Studio Daimon and my friend Alfred for sponsoring this video.
Towards this noble end, I shall be your peerless warrior! Itadakimasu!
Wait, little chef. Don't forget to back my cause. Or I'll need to persuade you the hard way.
Starting my Fire Legendary tier list, I've got Hinoka as the best Fire Legendary right now, even though she has fallen off a bit when it comes to her combat against a lot of the Omni tanks, which are really tanky and she doesn't really do much damage against. And you know, the charge status is something that Spring Chloe can provide as well, and she can also run Soaring Guidance, which is something that Legendary Hinoka cannot do. The charge status does have a bit more counters, with Gatekeeper's Weapon Refine making him better, Valentine Myrrh, and even on this banner we have got High Dragon Wall, which can block the warping of the range units. But still, I think that she's a solid supportive nuke who can still work out, and she can even run an AoE build with Verge of Death that we have got now, and the pre-combat damage stacking is certainly going to be helping her in her damage output. Then we have got Legendary Male Corrin, and I'm going to be putting him in tier 1. He doesn't really have as much support as Hinoka, even though Hinoka's support is not that insane in the grand scheme of things now, which is just insane to say. But still, he is going to be a fantastic Omni tank, and definitely better than an Omni tank that is present in tier 2. So I can only put him in tier 2 and he's going to be in tier 1. And then finishing off tier 1, I've got Legendary Lilina, who has got an amazing Weapon Refine and Remix. So her AoE damage has increased, and she has got Hardy Bearing in her weapon, which is really unique. And then she can just run Crystalline Water now and not get bothered by the debuffs on her attack and resistance. And she also provides support with her special by giving Canto 1 to the allies, which is really good for Arena. So overall, I think that she is of course going to be used in Arena, where she's going to be one-shotting a lot of things, but she could also be used in Summoner duels and also in Aether Raid's defense because of her strong AoE nuking. Starting tier 2 off, I've got Legendary Female Alear, who has definitely fallen off for her combat and Omni tanking potential, because look at her weapon and then look at Legendary Male Corrin's weapon or Legendary Male Alear's weapon, and you will see a stark difference. She does provide the damage reduction piercing support, but nowadays we have got damage reduction piercing with stuff like Lagu's Friend, and also Legendary Camilla giving that out, and also Yukimura giving it out passively. So damage reduction piercing is a lot more accessible, and this banner itself we have got Legendary Male Corrin giving out the water terrain. So even though she does have that support, it is not really as coveted as it was before, and she doesn't really have as much unpierceable damage reduction as many of the top Omni tanks. So it's a bit sad for her because she's not even a year old, but that's, I suppose, the life cycle of a infantry Omni tank dragon. And then we have got Legendary Female Shez. So her combat is still pretty useful, but because of the speed creep, she is starting to fall off a bit. But because she can get that effective damage, she can nuke really hard, and now she has got access to speed defense tempo 4, which definitely works to trigger lethality on your second hit or just any kind of special. So she's mainly going to be functioning in the player phase, and Rooker Siege is again back so that she can be used there. And starting tier 3 off, I've got Legendary Celica as another player phase nuke. So she does have the Desperation effect in her weapon and also the damage reduction piercing, but the role of a nuke is really competitive right now. It can be a bit hard for her to nuke the Omni tanks that have a lot of unpierceable damage reduction, because she can only run the cheating damage, the pre-combat damage, with Occultist Strike or something like that. But still, if you have her at max investment, she's going to be performing fairly well. Ending tier 3 off, I've got Legendary Edelgard. So we've got Winter Edelgard, we've got Summer Edelgard, and even the original Edelgard is an amazing Gale Force initiator. So Legendary Edelgard definitely has a hard time standing out, but still she could be used as a tech option against many of the teams that are trying to counter Winter Edelgard with their green or blue Near Savior. So that way she can just go in with the Double Fury build and fall into the Wings of Mercy range. And unfortunately, you'll have to take a score hit so that you can run Assault Troop in Arena and get that better mobility. The extra actions are definitely amazing, but she's not going to be as insane of a nuke like Winter Edelgard, who has got the Null Miracle, the damage reduction piercing, and the instant Gale Force. So we're going to be having a hard time using her, and in Arena, if you can give her the Rain Snap support or the Guidance Force support, it can work out, and then you can run something else in her slot C. But again, mobility is going to be a big issue for armors in Arena in general. Starting tier 4 off, I've got Legendary Marth, and his weapon is basically these stats. That's pretty much it. But it's not the worst, because he can still, function with a lot of modern skills, and he can actually run Lagu's Friend. So in that case, the stat stacking can help you because you can have better defense and you can also have more offenses. And he's going to be appearing in the Holoforms next month, so look out for that. And then tier 5 also has E3, whose combat honestly sucks. She has a very hard time killing things, and also surviving things with her damage reduction, which is not really all that substantial. And her main saving grace is the fact that she's a flyer, so she can run guidance 4 or soaring guidance and provide that support to her allies. Her weapon refine and remix are probably going to be happening in early 2025, so hopefully she can get something good. And then ending off tier 4, I've got Legendary Xander, who's pretty underwhelming honestly. I wish he learned a thing or two from Legendary Hinoka and gave out the null follow-up and special charges status from his weapon to not only to himself but also to the other allies. And because he doesn't, it is going to be purely combat focused unit. He can run attack speed XL now, and he also has no quarter, but even then it is not going to be all that impressive. And then we've got the final tier in tier 5, starting with Legendary Hector. So he could be used with Acts of Devotion now, so that's going to be one of the weapons that he can run on him. And he could use him in Aetherite's offense for his Tactic Time Pulse, which is still a thing, which can be used in combination with the other pulse effects of Garrick, Asker, Infantry Pulses, and other pulse support. So there he does have a niche, but his combat has aged terribly. It's going to be very hard for him to take things on and get the bonus skills in his bonus season. But still, Weaving Fighter is a new tool that he has got now. And then we have got Legendary Ephraim, and there's just so many better Cavaliers out there for Gale Forcing. Even his summer version that does it much better and does not rely on the guaranteed follow-up attack as a slow unit, because there's a lot of null follow-up out there, so that's not always going to be happening. But still, he is able to use no quarter now, and in Arena, you'll need to run him with B-Dual Cavalry 4. And then the final unit in tier 5 is going to be Legendary Roy. The competition for a sword infantry is so absurd, it's not even funny. And in this banner itself, we've got Emblem Ike, and Legendary Roy can also run a similar build to Legendary Marth with Lagu's Friend, but Legendary Marth actually can stat stack more. His support is also not all that good, and even at max investment, his combat is not going to be all that impressive compared to the other options that we've got in this class type. Let me know in the comments what do you think about my Fire Legendary tier list and how would you rank these units. So this banner is going to be giving you incredible value on the green pool with double Fire Legendary units, which is a bit annoying because they are both in the same archetype of Omni tanking, but one is better than the other when it comes to Omni tanking. So Legendary Female Lear could also, get some merges, and she does have good fodder with a Pledge and Null Counter Disrupt, so she can be useful even if you get her. And then we have got Rearm Lucina, who has got that extra action, and she's an incredible Axe Cavalier, pretty much the best Axe Cavalier, and her Arcane Weapon is also the best Arcane Weapon in my opinion. So green has got good value, but red is just absolutely insane with the double Emblem Hero value with Emblem Marth and Emblem Ike. Emblem Marth's Engage Ring is a lot more helpful than him, but still he's a useful sword infantry unit. And then we have got Emblem Ike, who's the best Omni tank in the game. He also has this Emblem Ring, which does give you that unpierceable damage reduction against the ranged foes. It's not as universally useful as Marth's Ring, but still good to have. And right now we don't really have a lot of Emblem heroes, so the opportunity cost is quite low for running their Emblem Rings. And Emblem Ike himself is just such an amazing unit, as you have seen, probably faced him so many times. So a lot of people are going to be summoning on the red pool because of them. Then we've got Quasar color sharing with these two Emblem heroes, and for many people she might be a dud, but she can work decently well in Aetherite's defense, but you'll need to completely revamp her with Devoted Basket Plus with Flared Sparrow, Occultist Strike, and Fatal Smoke 4. So that is going to be a lot of heavy investment, and her fodder is also not the greatest, but still she can provide you with inside attack speed. And then Colorless is going to be having two mythics with Galvig and Asker. Asker is definitely the better mythic out of the two, and it also has one of the best support units in the game in Hortensia. So Hortensia is just so incredible with her support, and she also provides you with Arcane Charmer as the Arcane Staff, so she also has the value with the fodder. And then finally, I think the lowest priority is going to be the blue pool for many people, because it has got Legendary Fae and also Legendary Shez, which don't really provide the best of the fodder, and Mythic Lumera can be decent for taking on the AoE damage, because with Mythic Loki and Nurgle, you can just have your status stolen, but that is not the case with a Divine Vein Stone Terrain, which can definitely help you tank the AoE specials a lot better, and she can definitely be a good ally for Emblem Ike. The next month, we're going to be having the Book 8 Midpoint banner, and it might have a Sparkable Mythic unit, and we're probably going to be getting a FE channel in a couple of days, so be on the lookout for that. And June is starting, which means that summer banners are going to be there, and the new summer banner might have Summer Gulvig. I'm not memeing because Aether and Sather might be on that Tempest Trial banner because there are 4 green units being rerun for the Legendary banner next month, and that is Legendary Xander, Legendary Camilla, Aether, and Sather. So obviously a Legendary banner cannot have 4 green units, so some of them have to go in some other banner, and that's why I'm thinking probably Tempest Trial banner. We're also going to be having a double special heroes banner, and we're probably going to be having something like this with Halloween Sea Doll and Your Male Kana being the 4-star focuses, Ninja, Zelgius, and Nabata Gren being amazing color sharing units, and Winter Dimitri might not be there, it might be Heather, but I think that they could try and do the color share of Duo Leon and Winter Dimitri and provide even more value. And then Valentine Mur is going to be in the colorless. There are not a lot of colorless options, so some kind of older duo or harmonic unit is probably going to be getting rerun. And for the next month, at the end, we're going to be having an Emblem Hero banner. So we have the green Legendary Hero right now, and I think that the next month we might have a green midpoint OC. It could be Henriette, it could even be Resvelger if they want to make the midpoint OC blue. In that case, the Emblem Hero would be green. So it depends on the midpoint OC and what happens there. And they're probably going to be getting rerun on the Legendary banner. And you know, having Legendary Sida color share with an Emblem Hero is not the best, so I'm hoping that she appears in the Arcania Holo form so that Attuned Ivy could join in the blue pool and give more value with the Emblem Hero. Make sure to click the link on the screen right now to check out my banner review of the Battle banner, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes is about as functional as having a Corrin with Omega Yato. So that's it, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.